You can get into Harvard Law School with a 2.0 GPA? Hey everybody, today I want to talk about a little known path to getting into the nation's best law schools in America, and that is transferring law schools. Many people don't know this, but you can actually switch what law school you are attending after your first year or your 1L year and finish the rest of your time in law school, your 2L and your 3L year, which will then be the formal institution that you get your diploma from and from which you become an alumni. In this video, we're going to talk about a step-by-step process into transferring law schools, what that looks and feels like, and how you can use the process to your own benefit if you want to jump up the ladder of rankings in law schools to go to a better institution. Now let's first talk about the timeline for transferring law schools. If you want to transfer, there's only one window of time that you are allowed to do it in your law school career, and that is right after your first year of law school. In fact, it's within 3 to 4 weeks after the end of most law schools finishing their spring semester. So if you want to transfer, you have to move quick. The elements of a transfer application look very similar, if not identical, to those of a law school application. You have your grades from undergrad, you have your test examination scores, you have letters of recommendation, you have the written administrative portion of the application on the website, but in addition, you also have your 1L grades from the law school that you did your 1L year at. The most important piece of your application are your 1L grades. When law schools are reviewing applicants for transfer admission, what they're really looking for are the people who they think in their mind could have gotten into their law school off the bat, or performed so well during their 1L year at their other institution that they have proven that they will be successful at the institution to which they're applying. Now, obviously, you should try to do well in your 1L year, not just because you may think about transferring law schools, but because your career prospects for a lot of areas of the legal industry, like big law, like in-house, can depend on your 1L year. So you have your 1L grades, you have your undergrad grades, you have the administrative portion of the application. Those are all going to be untouched. You can't really change those. What about the personal statement? Let's talk about that. Most often, people only revise their personal statement to transfer law schools a little bit to tweak and discuss why they actually want to transfer. Otherwise, most people talk about the same issues or narrative that they talked about when they initially applied to law school, whether that's getting involved in government or saving the world or starting your own law firm. But when you apply to transfer, you want to actually mention and discuss a little bit of background as to why you want to make the move. In reality, a lot of these admissions offices know that you probably want to transfer because you want better job opportunities, or you want a more prestigious degree, or you want to be alongside people that you feel are more at your caliber of academic rigor, etc., etc. But it's not enough, and I would not advise you to ever say in your application, yeah, I want to go to this school because it's ranked higher. Instead, make a more creative case for why you want to transfer. Whether that's because the new school will offer you better job opportunities, or maybe it will put you on a path to academia. I was actually a transfer student in law school myself. I did my first year at the NYU School of Law, and then I transferred to Harvard after my first year. In my personal statement, I talked about how I felt that the Harvard brand and the Harvard alumni network could better help me in the future if I wanted to pursue policy and politics and potentially academia. All of which were true reasons, because as good of a school as NYU is, Harvard is simply better when it comes to policy and academic opportunities down the line. Let's talk briefly about the letters of recommendation. Usually you can submit up to 4 letters of recommendation, though many transfer applicants will opt for 2 or 3. I encourage you to have at least one of your letters of recommendation written by one of your 1L professors. Of course, you can reuse the letters of recommendation that you received and prepared when you were getting ready to get into law school and when you applied to law school, but having a 1L professor write something for you looks a lot better to the new school. It's much more recent, and it's speculated that if you don't have a professor from your 1L year write you a letter of recommendation, that it's a red flag for you as an applicant. This might give you pause because, well, seems like an awkward conversation. You're gonna go to your 1L professors and be like, hey, can I leave this school and can you actually help me leave because I want to go to a different school? The reality is a lot of professors are very understanding of the many reasons that people might want to transfer law schools. And if you approach them with that human perspective, tell them the truth about why you want to transfer, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by how supportive they are. Remember that when you ask for letters of recommendation, you want to give your professors at least 6 weeks notice before they're actually due, because law school professors, like many professors in the academic world, move pretty slowly. So make sure you ask well in advance. Once you have all of these materials ready to go, you're ready to apply to transfer, and the process looks basically identical to when you apply to law school. You send in your materials and then you wait, and it usually takes 6 to 8 weeks for the schools to make their decisions and send people notices either via phone call or email or sometimes physical mail as well. If you want to know whether you have a good shot at getting in as a transfer based on your stats, check out the 509 required disclosures that every single law school has to submit to the ABA. In these disclosures, you'll see statistics on the admitted transfer classes 4 years prior. And that can help give you an idea of whether your 1L GPA will be sufficient to get you into some of these schools that you are targeting. And though it's impossible to say with certainty how much each of these elements that we've talked about in this video are weighted when you go to apply as a transfer student, I would wager that 80% of your entire application is simply your 1L GPA. And everything else, the letters of rec, the personal statement, the work experience, all of that, cumulatively 20%. A few other things to keep in mind about the transferring process. Sometimes law schools will not let you write on or even compete to get onto their law review journals when you come in as a transfer student. And obviously, if you want to go into academia or if you want to clerk, not being able to serve on the law review of your law school, not going to help. Also, financial aid is somewhat limited for transfer students. Oftentimes, these schools who accept transfers think, well, if you want to upgrade schools, we're going to make you pay full sticker price. And that was the case for me when I went to Harvard. I had a small scholarship at NYU, but when I transferred in, they said, no aid for you. I think that transferring law schools is one of the most slept on and underrated ways to get into some of the nation's best law schools, especially if your application initially to get into law school may not be the strongest for whatever reason. Maybe you didn't have the best GPA, or you bombed the LSAT, or your work experience wasn't quite there yet. Transferring is almost a second shot at getting into any of these schools, whether they're your dream school or your reach school or somewhere near your home that you really want to live. One major downside, of course, is that you have to leave behind your 1L network and all of your friends that you made in your section, which does suck, and you have to make new friends at your new school, and sometimes there is this stigma with being a transfer, like, oh, that person didn't get in off the bat, maybe they're not as worthy or whatever, you know, and you're gonna have to deal with a little bit of that probably wherever you go. But at the end of the day, when you graduate from whatever law school it is that you transfer to, that becomes your alma mater, that becomes your brand, that becomes your alumni network, that becomes your diploma. So I think that every law student should at least consider transferring because it has a lot of benefits. Keep in mind that no matter where you go to law school, you can still be an incredibly successful attorney who can rise up and become Supreme Court justice or enter politics or become a professor. Nothing is going to stop you, and not going to one of the best law schools because you didn't get in or you didn't choose to transfer there, that's not going to stop you either. As always, please hit that sub button, drop a comment for content that you're curious about in the legal profession, or if you have video suggestions in general, I'd love to hear them from you guys, and be well wherever you are. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you soon.